So what is the American dream? Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. The term American dream was coined by James Adams in his book Epic of America in 1931. He states that the American dream is, quote, that dream of a land in which all life should be fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability and to achievement. It is not a dream of motor cars or high wages merely, but a dream of social order, in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest stature of which they are innately capable. This idea of achieving one's personal American dream has been sculpted by colonizers' claim of the divine right of manifest destiny, where individual rights reign supreme. It is the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Euro-American ideals of individualism are acknowledged as synonymous with what it means to achieve one's own American dream. The classic American tale. An underdog stands alone against oppression and against all odds as a means of higher status or personal prosperity. Individualism is seemingly the social order of the United States. American individualist ideologies have been portrayed on the silver screen even prior to the golden age of Hollywood. As film developed, a definable American culture was also developing. It's no surprise that individualism was represented as the American way, characters establishing themselves as visible among a sea of others, appeasing the viewer's fears of blending into mediocrity and becoming undistinguishable. Take, for example, the clip from the 1928 film entitled The Crowd. In the vast and seemingly infinite number of faceless extras, we find the film's individualist, the hero of Hollywood-based American cinema. Although American culture has altered and evolved since 1928, this basic framework of individual equals hero remains the standard in Hollywood cinema. So what then is the alternative perspective? Collectivist societies are communal societies characterized by mutual obligation and expectations based on ascribed statuses. In these societies, social units with common fate, common goals, and common values are centralized. The individual is simply a component of the collective. The core element of collectivism is the assumption that the individual's ultimate obligation is to the prosperity and success of the group, even if that end requires a sacrifice of personal prosperity and success. Simply put, collectivism is a community-based ideology, with the value of public welfare at its core. Hollywood produces and reproduces the now popularized individual-centric protagonist. Usually a white male, a rugged type, with a hard exterior and a heart of gold. He doesn't play by anyone's rules, but he's pulling for the right cause. He's a lone wolf, an underdog. By the end of the film, he will likely have done something unexpectedly heroic. No one's going to tell him how to live his life, and he'll do whatever it takes to come out on top. Cinema acts as a lens through which to show culture. As long as there's been a Hollywood, a white individualist agenda has been pushed to show what it means to be the right kind of American, and what it means to be on the wrong side of manifest destiny. This cinematic hero and the white culture he represents continue to further and further perpetuate the otherness of cultures, like many Native American cultures who value community over the individual. With his roots firmly in Euro-American individualistic ideals, the Hollywood hero inherently demonizes this otherness, showing it as a hostile ideology that threatens individual rights and theories of manifest destiny. In Hollywood cinema, Native American stereotypes are perpetuated because they are painted as a threat to Euro-American progress and a hurdle to be overcome. Hollywood film consistently shows American Indians as an extinct or vanishing people, frozen in time and a threat to the almighty individual. Take, for example, protagonist Hawkeye from the critically acclaimed contemporary film The Last of the Mohicans, based on the 1826 James Cooper novel of the same name. As his name suggests, Nathaniel Hawkeye is a man in the middle of two worlds that, because it's a Hollywood film, are portrayed as forever clashing with no hope in finding a middle ground. Hawkeye is a white man, adopted by the last two living members of the Mohican tribe. He stands between white and native, in love with the British general's daughter, the daughter of colonization, yet he is still tied to his native roots. He is the only one of his kind. He is alone and trying to carve himself out as an individual, finding his place in the white world. The Hawkeye character acts as an intermediary between the differing ideologies, a means for the individualist, primarily white audience to relate to the other. The Last of the Mohicans also creates a native portrait of the good and the bad Indian. The film inaccurately represents Indians in only the two following ways. One, as dead like Magua, who is portrayed as the bad Indian, or two, as the final members of a vanishing race like the last Mohicans, who are seen as the good Indians. Magua is the story's villain. He's a barbaric Huron seeking violent and brutal revenge on Euro-white expansion, and is ultimately killed for resisting colonization and potential assimilation. Killed by the good Indians, Hawkeye's adopted family, and they are literally the last of a dying race. After Uncas is killed, his father declares, almost with pride, that he is the last Mohican, and therefore no threat to manifest destiny. The story concludes with the almost disturbing message of a good Indian is a dying Indian, on the brink of extinction. A better Indian is a dead Indian who violently and savagely fought colonization. But the best kind of Indian is a white guy who marries a cavalry officer's daughter. Like The Last of the Mohicans seemed to attempt, the Kevin Costner film Dances with Wolves is also regarded as a liberal or sympathetic view of the Native perspective. Again, though, Dances with Wolves is a misinterpretation of Native peoples, in this case, the Lakota, because it is only shown through the eyes of the white Kevin Costner. Through this white individualist Hollywood perspective, the Native American people on screen are exoticized. They are established as inherently different. The Lakota in this film and their culture are shown as something to be discovered, investigated, and sized up by Euro-America. Dunbar becomes the hero in the tribe when he takes part in a buffalo hunt, the implication being that Native people need white people in order to save them. Furthermore, both The Last of the Mohicans and Dances with Wolves are period films, but made in contemporary times. These films portray Native people as people of the past, trapped in time, as a dated people without a presence in modern America. Hollywood shows Native Americans as dangerous and savage, hurdles in the way of the American dream, as a vanishing or extinct people without a voice in present day, or as people who need a white individualist hero to save them. All of these things are reliant on the past. Both of these big-budget Hollywood films are considered to be very sensitive and accurate Native representations. However, at their most basic narrative level, the hero is a white man, shown entering the Native community with something they need to improve upon. Mainstream Hollywood cinema would have to work to deconstruct the white individualist hero formula it's created to accurately represent Native Americans on film. But it seems the strong and ongoing value of the individual right above all else prevents this representation from ever coming to light. An ever-growing library of Native American literature and films being created, Native Americans are not without voice in popular culture. Native American film and ideals of collective ideologies fight the inaccurate stereotypes Hollywood has portrayed about Native American people. Native American-made film gives Native communities a voice to represent themselves, often through a more collectivist main character than either Hawkeye or Dunbar. It is an opportunity for a definition of self, without the white perspective. Protagonists of films like Smoke Signals, that place value on the community over the individual, are very different than the cowboy-esque Hollywood hero. Smoke Signals is a coming-of-age story of young Victor, played by Adam Beach, who is a Coeur d'Alene living on a reservation in Idaho. Victor feels alone and out of place among the other characters since his father left when he was a child. However, after receiving news of his father's death in Arizona, Victor and his eccentric peer Thomas travel to Arizona to collect Arnold's ashes. As they get further and further from home, Victor finds himself more and more connected with his community, as he discovers more of what America is outside the reservation. Further emphasizing the value of community prosperity over individual prosperity, the film arguably has multiple protagonists. On face, Victor is the protagonist. However, Thomas tells the story of the journey as it unfolds. He is the narrator of Stoic Victor's journey to understanding his role in the community. Without Thomas's story, Victor's journey would never exist. Like the collective society, Victor and Thomas are two individuals reliant on one another for progress. It takes more than one person. It takes a whole community to tell a collective story.
Dad. Well, I think it's a fine example of the oral tradition.
Furthermore, Native cinema, like Smoke Signals, values, not demonizes, Native American tradition, while also showing that this tradition has a place in contemporary America, that Native culture is not something that has been wiped out and didn't survive Manifest Destiny.
Thomas, you gotta look like a warrior.
When the film begins, Victor sees himself as alone, the warrior image Euro-American culture has painted him as, even trying to convince Thomas how to look like a, quote, real Indian, which to Victor is the native as represented in Hollywood cinema. However, as the film goes on, Victor finds that he is not alone, but rather a single and necessary piece in his community puzzle. He becomes a symbol of a functioning collective. Although they traveled far from home, both Thomas and Victor happily returned to the community they belonged to, with satisfied minds.
Man, the Cowboys always win.
The Cowboys don't always win.
Yeah, they do. The Cowboys always win. Look at Tom Mix. What about John Wayne?
Even if it seems like the Cowboys always win, when Native communities are given a means of self-representation, the community can win. And this ideology has a place on the big screen. Native-made film serves as a platform to give Native Americans a true sense of agency, the ability to represent themselves and their culture, and to fight the harmful stereotypes created and ongoingly supported by the Hollywood film industry. The hero doesn't have to be a man overcoming others to carve himself out as an individual, or even just have to be one man. Native film gives the communities a sovereignty that fights the obtuse and ignorant representations of natives in Hollywood films like The Last of the Mohicans and Dances with Wolves. So, what's the American dream? I guess it still really depends on who you ask.
Something I'm looking forward to my children and grandchildren seeing. I wish my mom was here. In her day, we didn't play ourselves. We weren't shown with a life, a family, and a dignity. We were shown as obstacles to be overcome.
It is an ancient conflict. It has another name: the individual against the collective. Our country, the noblest country in the history of men, was based on the principle of individualism, the principle of man's inalienable rights. It was a country where a man was free to seek his own happiness, to gain and produce, not to give up and renounce, to prosper, not to starve, to achieve, not to plunder, to hold as his highest possession a sense of his personal value, and as his highest virtue, his self-respect. Look at the results. That is what the collectivists are now asking you to destroy, as much of the earth has been destroyed.